Well, it's a great pleasure to welcome Infobip back to What's Next. And Dharshan Naidoo, who's the sales team lead for Infobip Africa, is going to be joining us. But when you look at the banking industry right now, it's becoming increasingly competitive. And in an era of self service and chatbots, uh, humanizing, personalizing the banking experience is becoming increasingly important. Now, it makes your customers feel appreciated, respected, and valued, necessary ingredients for loyalty and an increase in share of wallet. Now, one way of personalizing the experience to provide communication through their channel of preference. That's the one way. Now, a Gallup research study also found that the emotional connection is what keeps customers coming back, with fully engaged customers netting an incremental 23% of revenue, which is quite impressive. I'm going to be speaking to Infobip Africa about this, and we're going to be sharing some of the interesting insights on how the banking industry can evaluate whether they have the technology stack to support the humanizing of their customer engagement experience. So, with that, it's Dharshan Naidoo, who's the sales team lead for Infobip Africa, who joins us. Dharshan, it's really good to see you. How are you doing, firstly?
First of all, thank you very much for having me out here, and I'm doing well. Yeah, I hope the same with you.
Yeah, no, all good on my side. It's incredible when you look at COVID and, we often hear of organizations talking about customer experience, customer experience. Now, customer experience is probably one of the most, if not the most important thing across any industry, and banking in particular is even more, starkly aware of this, especially when you look at how our banking has changed. I mean, I can't remember, walking into a bank the last time I was there. So everything is done now digitally, and that human connection is there, but it comes in different methods, right? Now, Infobip is a global communications company, so the ideology of digital customer engagement plays a really important role in banking. Can you provide us with an overview of what omnichannel digital banking is all about?
Absolutely, we're glad to do that, and I think you're absolutely right in what you said. The pandemic has actually put us into a new way of how we engage. No matter which vertical that you follow, everybody speaks about customer experience. That's key. So coming back to your question about omnichannel, I think basically with omnichannel banking, I personally feel this actually bridges the gap between what we currently have, which is online banking, and the traditional face-to-face type of banking where you walk into a brick and mortar type of environment and engage with consultants. So, okay, customers can transition between channels without disturbing or fragmenting their current customer journey. And if banks provide them with basically a choice of channels that they can engage with or communicate with. And I think as a result, they can provide customers with the convenience of digital channels with the likes of a WhatsApp, Telegram, Facebook Messenger, but also try to then include automation with the likes of a chatbot, to try and personalize or humanize that feel to it. So yes, I think while keeping the personal interaction that is essential for trust and development, I think it's key. So, however, as you know, banks fail to take advantage of this when they truly relied mostly on an isolated type of touch point, such as video conferencing on their online platform, or instead of actually going out and introducing or building a more integrated customer experience, by introducing the digital channels.
Yeah. So that's really interesting, Dharshan, and I guess, and I wonder why the banks sometimes miss that, because it's such an important aspect of communication and keeping me as a customer engaged. Now, I mean, when you look at the world, and as the world becomes increasingly more digital, right? It's not just banks; it's everything. It's e-commerce. It's how you deal with buying food online, for example, and delivery services. I mean, everything is becoming digital, and businesses need to think like that. The banking and finance industry, included in all of this, are forced to find new ways of connecting with customers. Now, we often hear of these new ways, and there are many of these new ways, but can you tell us why banks need to humanize their digital experience? Because that's the one frustration I have with banks, is that it doesn't feel human, right? There's a disconnect between me as a customer and the bank. How on earth are they expected to humanize that digital experience?
I fully agree with you. And I think that actually brings us back to what we know. Banks haven't changed in the last 100 years. It was just the old method of brick to mortar, get people coming into the branch and let's engage in that way. But I guess, with the pandemic putting things into perspective, and this is long before the pandemic as well, I think the banking industry had been trying to move away from traditional type of banking methods and try to adopt some sort of digital platforms. But I think the reasons driven could be either both economic and maybe efficiency considerations as well. And the relationships that the new generation of consumers, requiring some sort of digital type of means or want to be digitally connected consumers, because they expect not only convenience, Aki, I think what they also expect is a memorable customer experience. So it always comes back to customer experience, right? And I think the consumers, they desire to interact with banks in a much more fundamentally and vitally changing way. And I think this presents opportunity for growth. And I think this is what the banks need to realize. It's about monetizing and how do I actually grow, okay? And I think by humanizing digital interactions, it's crucial for the banks to actually do that. This will not only help them to connect with their customers in a much better way, but also it provides a more personal touch in the digital interactions with their consumers. And I think also this builds a much stronger connection with their clients, which in turn then leads to greater customer acquisition, but also better consumer retention. I think that's key, is how do I retain my current customers apart from onboarding new ones?
Yeah, and I guess that's such an important one, the retention, because the competition is getting quite fierce out there. There's a lot of new banks that are opening, and people are always looking for what's better out there. Who's going to give me better service? It might not necessarily be about the bank charges, but at the end of the day, there is massive competition out there. New banks opening up and offering different services, maybe personalized services, making it easier for their consumers. So banks really need to take a note and see, how are they going to start communicating with their customers in a more efficient way. Look, let's be honest, they are trying hard. I mean, it's no easy task. You've got to move into the digital world that we're living in right now, but you also have to find those ways of connecting with your customers more efficiently. Now, in the previous point, you've highlighted that humanizing their digital experience. I like that, humanizing a digital experience. Banks can build a stronger connection with their clients, which in turn leads to great customer acquisition and better customer retention. Now, how on earth do we improve how can banks improve digital customer experience? What are the ways that they should be looking at all of the points that we discussed?
I think that's the magical question, right? How do we get this right? How do banks actually evolve in being able to address these concerns or engage better with their customers? I think over the past year and a half, I would say, Aki, the customer experience trends have really shifted rapidly. I think customers of today, they expect lightning fast responses from whichever entity they're dealing with, not only the banks in question today, but any vertical or any enterprise for that matter. So they're requiring fast responses, and they are not interested in the enterprises, what time of day do they work, or do they work after hours, or whatever the case is, or how busy you might be. They don't care about that. It's basically considering this. I think banks must always put their customers first. Customers come first. We should know that. No matter which vertical you are in, your customer is the most important part of your business. And I think reaching out to them with personalized offers, quickly responding to their requests that they might have, and connecting new features such as integrating a bot into the banking environment via a variety of channels. I think that's vital, is providing not just one channel and thinking that that's how consumers want to engage. There is a variety of channels that each individual or each consumer has a preference to, okay? So I think this will help banks to achieve the goal of hyper personalization, if you want to call it that way, and unprecedented service and convenience. Fostering loyalty, that's key, fostering the loyalty and having a customer for life. So I think when you start listening to what the customer's needs are, and if you basically have a platform or a service around that, I think that is key to having that customer with your business for a long time to come.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about that, as you were talking, there are some instances that I wish my bank was open after the traditional banking hours, because you want to do stuff in your spare time when you're not working, and often these kinds of businesses are closed after hours, and you think about the times when you are applying for a bond or you're talking to somebody. Probably the most convenient time is when a family's together, is to do that kind of thing at night. And I often wonder why we don't think of doing these things. And often, as you're talking now, and I know we're moving away into a digital world, right? But sometimes you just want to talk to somebody. You have a query, or there's been fraud that's happened on your account. You want to talk to somebody urgently. You don't want to talk to a bot or talk to an email response. You want that instant reaction. You want to speak to somebody now. And I guess those are such important points that you raise. Now, increasingly, the banking industry must push on all fronts, right? If they want to really transform their products and their business and their service delivery along the digital lines that consumers have come to expect, what are the key drivers of digital banking? What are you seeing those trends internationally happening?
That's a very good question. I think from what I'm seeing, being at Infobip and from being in the banking and fintech, I think, which is one of our biggest verticals that we drive our services to, customers are continuously searching for some sort of tailored or enhanced banking choices. Such as, for example, like a 5-minute loan approval, some sort of digital transactions or trip-based insurance, or what about a digital onboarding? Do I need to go to a brick and mortar to sign up to become a new customer? Or can I literally do that at the convenience of my couch, where I can basically onboard as a new customer, sign up with new services and be digitally onboarded? I think also like daily interest statements, invoices, based on my services that I have with a particular bank. And I think banks can only meet such demands by going entirely digital, I think while customer security and cost efficiency are key drivers as well in the banking industry, I think the true value actually comes in play when banks, they offer a digitalization which can only be determined by what it can accomplish for the consumer at the end of the day, right? I think introducing omnichannel approach can really simplify the customers' lives and allow them to actually enjoy convenience. I think that's the key word, convenience, of managing all their finances in one place. I think it can also help deliver a uniform of integrated banking channels at home and continuing the application on the mobile banking app, whatever the need to literally physically, not go to a branch and wait in queues and stuff for hours on end, where I could basically have the best experience, as I mentioned, at the convenience of my home, or where could I be? And also, I think you spoke to that as well, is that life has a better of us. We don't have that much time as well with amongst work and stuff. Now, when you come home after work and then you want to engage with your bank, sorry for you, it's after hours. We operate, 8 to 5 or whatever the case might be. But yet, this is a time that's convenient for you to engage. So I think, when you start getting enterprises or banks to say, hey, I can operate 24 hours and I can provide my services to my consumer, even if they have a question at whatever time of night it is, that I can provide them some sort of response, So I think that those are the key drivers, is how do I get my customer engaged and also try to provide the best customer experience in doing that.
I've got to say, I've had a few interactions with, I bank with FNB, for example, and I must say that they are trying a lot of these different things. I managed to open a business account after hours using my face identification on my phone. So they do have those things, and I've had a few interactions with Discovery, for example, and they're doing a lot of that digital stuff, which is fantastic. The power that you have on your hands, and I think it's a constantly evolving industry, right? And I guess that you must have exposure to what the rest of the world is doing. I would think that South Africa, from a banking point of view, digitally, and the stuff that we've been talking about, we are doing pretty well when we compare ourselves to other countries.
I would fully agree with you there. A lot of People think that South Africa is a third world country, that we're behind technology. But man, let me tell you something, that Africa, for that, but not only South Africa, we are the forefront leaders when it comes to technology. So we're always adopting and utilizing and integrating the latest technology that's available out there. So you're right. If you just mentioned the F&Bs of the world and the discoveries of the world, it's how they actually differentiate themselves from their competitors. By innovating, by trying to use the latest available technology, whether it comes from digital, whether it comes from security, or whatever the case might be. Because at the end of the day, that's what consumers are looking for, especially the millennials of today. We're dealing with a different demographic here when you talk about millennials. They want to literally operate on their mobile device, but they want to make that engagement with whoever they're dealing with, no matter which industry or vertical, is they want to have the best experience. They want that bank that they're dealing with to basically cover all the touch points, throughout the customer journey, and actually provide them with meaningful information. They don't want to be spammed. That's the last thing they want. So I think it also speaks about when these enterprises or these banks gather information from these different touch points, what do they do with that data? It's so insightful, because now you can go back to your marketing division and say, right, guys, we need to be sending meaningful campaigns, personalized campaigns to these individuals, because that's how you're going to get those individuals saying that, hey, I feel valued by this bank. They're listening to what I want and what I need. And this is why I will remain with them. Not only because they're innovative, but they know exactly how me as a consumer engages with their entity.
Fantastic. Dharshan Naidoo, I've so enjoyed chatting to you. That was such a great chat and such an important conversation to have. Dharshan heads up the sales team for Infobip South Africa, the sales team lead for Infobip South Africa. Dharshan, thank you so much for joining us on What's Next.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. To be a great pleasure, and hopefully to speak soon. Thank you.
All the best. Cheers.